So you want to import chocolate from Belgium and sell it in America, and somewhere in your head you're picturing a nice, simple wire transfer, a container showing up at a port, and a stack of boxes ready to sell. But that's not what happened to Janelle, a 28-year-old from Atlanta who tried exactly this last year. And by week 3 she was on the phone with a customs broker asking why her $6,000 shipment of Belgian truffles was sitting in a warehouse in New Jersey with a hold notice on it. By the end of this video you're going to know exactly what Janelle did right, what she got wrong, what it actually cost her, and whether the math on this idea works out once every real fee is on the table. Janelle's story starts the way most of these do. She'd been to Brussels for a friend's wedding, brought home a box of truffles from a small shop near the Grand Place, and couldn't find anything close to that quality back home. Not at the grocery store, not even at the specialty shops in Atlanta. She had a decent following on social media from posting about her trip. People kept asking where they could buy that chocolate, and she thought, why not just bring some in and sell it? That's the entire idea, and it's not a bad one. Belgian chocolate really does carry a reputation Americans already trust, built on stricter cocoa butter standards and a century of refined technique, so the demand side of this isn't the hard part. The hard part is everything that happens between that little shop near the Grand Place and a customer's front porch in Georgia. And that's the part Janelle had to learn the expensive way. The first mistake Janelle made, and it's the same one almost everyone makes, was pricing her chocolate based only on what the Belgian shop quoted her, without building in the tariff. Chocolate coming from the European Union generally carries a baseline tariff somewhere between 5 and 20% of the customs value, and depending on how much dairy is in the specific product, you can get hit with extra tariff rate quota charges on top of that. Janelle found this out when her customs broker sent her the final invoice and there was suddenly an extra several $100s she hadn't planned for. It's not a huge number by itself, but if you've already priced your product assuming your landed cost was X, and it turns out to be X plus a tariff you forgot to calculate, that's margin disappearing before you've sold a single bar. The second thing that surprised her was shipping. Chocolate can't just ride in a regular container. It needs refrigeration the entire way, because a standard container crossing the Atlantic in summer will turn a beautiful truffle into a grainy, separated mess by the time it lands. That means paying for reefer container rates, and if you're not filling an entire container yourself, which almost no first-time importer is, you're paying a premium for less than container load shipping, sharing space and temperature control with other shippers. For Janelle's test order, about 200 kilograms, roughly half a pallet, that shipping line item alone ran her just over $1,000, which she hadn't budgeted for because she'd been imagining shipping the way you'd imagine mailing a package, not the way an actual reefer freight quote works. Here's where Janelle's story gets interesting because this is the part almost nobody talks about before you try this: the FDA. Chocolate isn't just a customs transaction, it's a food import, and that puts it under the Food Safety Modernization Act. Before her chocolate ever left Belgium, Janelle needed prior notice filed with the FDA, her supplier's facility needed to be registered as a food facility, and her packaging needed to meet U.S. labeling law, which is not the same as European labeling. Janelle's supplier, a small family-run chocolatier, had never exported outside the EU before, so their packaging had European-style ingredient lists and nutrition information, and Janelle's plan had been to just put a sticker over it. That's not compliant, and it's exactly the kind of gap that gets a shipment flagged. So picture the actual scene. Janelle's chocolate leaves the chocolatier's shop by refrigerated truck, heads to the port of Antwerp, the busiest food export port in Europe for exactly this reason, gets loaded into a reefer container, and spends about 8 days crossing the Atlantic with its temperature logged the entire way. It reaches the port of New York in New Jersey, but instead of rolling straight onto a truck to Atlanta, it sits in the port's bonded area while customs processes the entry. And this is the exact window where an FDA hold happens. Because Janelle's supplier had never dealt with U.S. labeling requirements, and because Janelle had used a general customs broker instead of one with food import experience, the shipment got flagged for a labeling compliance issue, and just like that, her chocolate was sitting in a bonded warehouse, racking up storage fees per pallet per day, while she waited to find out if it would clear. So here's a question for you, because this is the moment that decides whether people actually go through with this or not. If you found out your first shipment could sit at the port for 2 weeks racking up storage fees before you even knew whether it would pass inspection, would that change your mind about trying this at all? Or would you just plan your cash flow so you could survive that wait? Drop your honest answer in the comments, because I think a lot of people say they want to do this until they hear that part. Janelle's story has a good ending, but it took an expensive detour to get there. Her broker helped her file corrected labeling documentation within the response window. Importers generally get about 30 days to fix a flagged issue before a shipment gets re-exported or destroyed, and after 12 extra days in storage, her chocolate cleared. By the time it did, between the original product cost, the shipping, the tariff, the broker fee, and nearly 2 weeks of storage charges she hadn't planned for, her simple test shipment had cost her just under $6,000 instead of the $4,500 she'd budgeted. That gap, the difference between what you plan for and what a single compliance mistake actually costs, is the single biggest reason first-time importers lose money on chocolate, and it's rarely about picking bad chocolate or bad pricing. Here's what Janelle would tell you to do differently, and it's the same advice any experienced food import broker gives. Treat your first shipment as a test, not a bet the business moment, so a mistake is survivable instead of catastrophic. Use a customs broker who specifically has food import experience, not a general one, because they'll catch a labeling gap before your chocolate ever leaves the country instead of after it's already in a bonded warehouse. And build a real relationship with your supplier. Ask directly whether they've exported to the US before and whether they can produce US compliant labeling, because a supplier who's done this before will save you weeks and thousands of dollars compared to one who's never shipped outside the EU. Once Janelle's chocolate actually cleared, the second half of her story is the part that matters just as much. Actually selling it. She split her approach. Some of her inventory went to 2 specialty grocery stores in Atlanta willing to carry it wholesale, and the rest she sold direct through her own website to the followers who'd been asking about it since her trip. Wholesale is usually the fastest way to move volume, but retailers expect to pay somewhere around 40 to 50% of what they'll charge their own customers, so your landed cost has to leave room for that discount and still be profitable. Selling direct captures more margin per box, but it comes with its own costs. Insulated packaging so the chocolate doesn't melt in transit, especially anything shipped during summer, plus faster, temperature-controlled delivery that costs more than standard shipping. Timing mattered more than Janelle expected too. Her shipment cleared in late October, which turned out to be lucky, because it landed right before the holiday season, the single biggest chocolate buying window in America, running from November through New Year's, with smaller spikes around Valentine's Day and Easter. If her shipment had been delayed into January instead, she'd have been sitting on holiday-priced inventory with the holiday rush already over, competing against clearance pricing on every other chocolate product on the shelf. Experienced importers plan their shipping timeline backward from these dates on purpose, because arriving even a few weeks late to a seasonal window can be the difference between selling through your inventory and sitting on it for months. So let's put real numbers next to Janelle's actual outcome, because this is the part that tells you whether the whole thing was worth it. Her true landed cost, including the unplanned storage fees, worked out to around $29 per unit across her 200 kilograms of chocolate, split into boxed assortments. She sold wholesale to her 2 retail partners at $24 a box, actually below her landed cost on those units, a loss she accepted to build the retail relationship, and sold the rest direct through her website at $32 a box, where she kept the full margin. By the time everything sold through, she'd cleared just over $800 in profit on her first shipment. Not the runaway success she'd pictured, but real profit on a first attempt that included a costly mistake, and more importantly, she now has a working relationship with a compliant supplier, a broker who knows her business, and real sales data to walk into more retailers with for her next order, which is where the actual money starts to show up. If there's one thing Janelle's story proves, it's that importing Belgian chocolate into America is absolutely something a small importer can do, and the demand really is there. People want this chocolate the moment they taste it. But the profit doesn't come from finding great chocolate, because that part is easy. It comes from surviving the part between the port and the shelf without a labeling mistake or a customs hold eating your entire margin. And that only happens when you treat the compliance side of this with the same seriousness you'd treat picking a great chocolatier.